Hi, these comments are for TD. This is Michael from bettertoeflscores.com. And this is my free TOEFL writing evaluation service. You sent me your practice test yesterday, and I'm going to give you some feedback today so you can understand your strengths and weaknesses as a writer. So the question here is, should teachers be paid based on how much their students learn? This is what you wrote here. So you wrote approximately 270 words. I'm looking at the rubrics here, and I'm thinking probably a pretty fair score here. There's some things that you're doing really well, and let me show you for a minute here, and some things you can work on. But I think the sentence style, sentence length, and vocabulary is quite strong. Check out this. So Microsoft Word, it has you as having 22.5 words is your average sentence length. That's fairly academic. I would suggest you try to get that closer to 25 on your next practice test. Your characters per word is 5.1. That's very high. So you have a lot of academic words in your writing. Your grade level is pretty much college, 12.4. So that looks good. Okay, so I think when I was reading it too, remarkably, there's not a lot of errors in this essay, but just because there's not a lot of errors doesn't necessarily mean you're going to score high. Okay, so the formatting of it, when I look at it for the first time, I actually thought it would score a lot lower than what it did, and I'll tell you why. Your first paragraph, it's only one line. That's not a good strategy right there, and you don't have a thesis statement there. And look at the difference between the second body paragraph, which is 70 words, versus the third body paragraph, which is 160. So try to balance out your reasons with the supporting detail and try to balance that. Instead of two body paragraphs, I recommend three. Okay, so I think that you're in the three area here. So I want to put you in the four, but here's why I didn't. It says generally well organized and well developed, using appropriate and sufficient explanations, examples, and or details. I don't know that you have any really appropriate examples or details in there. I mean, you've been a student in the past, right? You've had teachers, but I didn't hear anything about any classes that you were in and any teachers that taught you. So there is really no personal examples in there to illustrate your ideas that could have strengthened the argument in your writing. So I think you didn't accomplish this part, I think, as it relates to four. Now, you do have, I think, facility in the use of language, but you have problems in here. You have displays unity, progression, and coherence, though connection of ideas may be occasionally obscured. Now, I don't think that's a problem, but you addresses a topic using somewhat developed explanations. I'm going to say that. I think that's the main reason I put you in the three and not the four area. It just comes down to how well you develop your ideas with some specificity. And this type of question, it's relying or requiring you to kind of draw on your personal experience. So I'm going to put you at 22 to 24 points on this practice test. So first of all, the introduction, you need to get that to about 150 words instead of 17. Not 150, about 100 words, sorry. And you need a more sharply focused thesis here. The second paragraph, instead of 70 words, right? If you want to have two body paragraphs, excuse me, and not three, you need to keep this first body paragraph needs to be closer to 150 words. So you need to double the length of it. So you say the efforts of teachers necessarily in proportion to how much students learn. While students, well, the other problem here is how does that relate back to teachers should be paid or not paid? You just state a fact. The efforts of teachers are necessarily in proportion to how much your students learn? Do you mean to say are not necessarily in proportion? In proportion? So you need a more focused topic statement here that connects back to your thesis. Unfortunately, you don't have a thesis. That's the problem. If you don't frame a sharply focused thesis in this kind of writing, then your topic sentences end up being vague. So you have to be careful about that. Notice, for example, how participated our students in lessons. See, this will be what I call a lack of idiomasticity in your language use. A native speaker is not going to say how participated our students. Native speaker is going to say how much students participate in lessons plays an indispensable role, which is out of teachers' control, right? But that's not an example. You didn't say, for example, when I was in high school, I had a chemistry class that was difficult, and there were several students in there who didn't want to be there. They weren't motivated to be there. And in fact, right before we did any particular exam, these students were never preparing, they didn't study. And if the teacher were paid based on these students' test scores, the teacher would be fired immediately. But it wasn't the chemistry teacher's fault because these students weren't motivated to learn. So you don't have any examples in there to help illustrate what you're trying to do there. And even in this really big paragraph, you talk about things. You did say, from my own experience, my favorite teachers are those who take time, but you didn't give an example. You say, my favorite teacher in high school was a chemistry teacher or a biology teacher, blah, blah, blah. And then take time to develop that point and tell us more about that person. So even when you had a chance to give a specific example, you still did not, right? But I like your sentence style. I like how you put ideas together. You definitely have a good command of English. I mean, I'm not going to say you don't. That would not be a fair assessment. So again, I'm looking at the 4 here, and I'm looking at, yeah, I think the 5 too, you got problems. You're going to have problems when you get to this. Appropriate word choice and idiomasticity. So like that one, how participated our students depends on. That's not what a native speaker would say there. So there's a few areas in your essay where you're saying some unnatural things that native speakers don't say. So that's also going to prevent you from moving up into the 5 category until you solve those errors. All right, so I think that my score is actually pretty accurate. I'm going to put you at 22 to 24 points out of 30. Probably closer to 22 would be my guess at this point. The good news is, because you have such a good command of your vocabulary and your grammar, I think that I think you have a great shot at getting 29 or 30 on the TOEFL exam. And here's how you can do it, right? So you want to do this? I think it's really, really possible for you to do this, right? Okay, how about this? Enroll in my online TOEFL course. I have a speaking and writing feedback service, right? Go over to bettertoeflscores.com. You'll see it right here. Click on the speaking and writing feedback service. So enroll in this service. Notice where it says, I shall become a master in this art only after a great deal of practice. I think if you have enough practice, you can definitely get that higher score. So, I mean 29 or 30, right? Okay, so once you enroll, start sending me some writing practice, right? And I will continue to give you scores and feedback. Now, however, if you want the error correction, for example, I can take the essay that you wrote right now. I can show you how to make some structural changes in both the introduction and body paragraphs that can help you get 30 out of 30, right? I can show you how to do it. And we do this through a meeting, through a Zoom meeting. So at the Zoom meeting, I'm going to ask you to email me a writing practice test, and during that Zoom meeting, I'm going to read your essay. I'm going to correct the essay. I'm going to show you what your score is and why, and then show you the changes you can make to score higher. And I will give you some tips and strategies and even recommended lessons that you can study. Then we'll have another meeting 1 week from that meeting. So I recommend just join my TOEFL speaking and writing feedback service. It's not that expensive. And then arrange one private lesson per week where we can go over one of your writing practice tests, right? If you like this idea, and I'm telling you, I'm working right now with an orthopedic surgeon from Thailand, another doctor from Chile, and I got 5 other people from various parts of the world in the United States I'm working with. But it doesn't take me more than about 3 or 4 weeks of doing the private lessons with you once a week before your writing will be where it needs to be. And you will be 100% confident when you take that TOEFL exam. All right? So if you have more questions, you can come by during my office hours. You will see them below my name in the email. My office hours, my Zoom office hours right now, it's Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 12:50 p.m. This is Pacific Standard Time in California, GMT -8. All right, and thank you for completing this practice test.